All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's virtual project information meeting for the Nebraska Avenue Roadway Improvements Project. I'm Tony Fabrizio with Pinellas County Communications, and I'll be moderating a portion of the meeting. This meeting is being recorded, and the link will be hosted on the project website tonight, if possible. You'll also be able to view our PowerPoint presentation separately on the website tonight. We're going to share a lot of updates about the project tonight, as well as summarize the public engagement we've done to date and explain our rationale for the project features. But there will also be plenty of time for you to ask questions and offer comments. We'll go over the format for that in a little bit. We're also going to invite you to share your thoughts in a survey that we'll connect you with at the end of the meeting. To get things started tonight, please welcome Public Works Director Kelly Hammer-Levy for some opening comments. Kelly?
Thank you, Tony. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. We know there's a lot of interest in this project, and we've done our best to get the word out about tonight's meeting to not only those who live directly on Nebraska Avenue, but also those of you who use the roadway to commute or to get to any of the several educational and recreational facilities in the area. We really want to hear from everyone. In a few moments, Rob Metter, our transportation section manager, will give a presentation to update you on the progress that we have made on this project. Then we'll introduce a panel that we've assembled tonight to hear your comments and answer all your questions. And then it will be your turn. Tony will go over the format when we get there. We first brought you the concepts for this project back in February, and we were very early in the design phase at that point. And a lot has happened since then. We've taken your feedback and we've made changes, but we have also stayed true to the goals of improving safety for pedestrians, school children, bicyclists, and drivers, as well as make some much needed improvements to stormwater drainage on Nebraska Avenue. And we'll go over all of this in the presentation. Some people have questioned why we decided to do this meeting virtually rather than in person. We do hold a lot of our public information meetings online. They're convenient for people who are coming from work or busy with family activities in the evening. And importantly, a virtual format allows us to record everything for those people who can't be with us, but want the opportunity to listen in afterwards. We're here to listen to your comments and answer your questions, but we'll take one at a time so that we can carefully consider all the community feedback we receive. And with that, I'll turn it back to Tony.
Thanks, Kelly. The next segment of the meeting is our presentation. We're not going to take questions during the presentation, but we'll get to those and your comments right afterwards. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our transportation section manager, Rob Metter. Rob?
Thanks, Tony. I'm going to start the presentation now. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this second project information meeting for the Nebraska Avenue Roadway Improvement Project. There has been a lot of interest in this project, and we're looking forward to showing you the updated design. The goal of tonight's meeting is to explain the intent of the proposed improvements and review changes made to the proposed design as a result of the input we've received. We want to make sure that this information is provided to as many in the community as possible, and to offer the opportunity for residents, road users, and business owners to understand and comment on the proposed improvements and intersection alternatives. After tonight's presentation, a survey will be available through the project webpage. For those of you who expressed concerns with the original design, we heard you, and we hope tonight's presentation will explain clearly how those concerns have been addressed. If you have further questions, we will take those at the end of the meeting. The project covers Nebraska Avenue from alternate US 19 to Westlake Boulevard, as shown here in blue on this map. Nebraska Avenue is a two-lane collector roadway that provides direct access to commercial and residential properties in multiple neighborhood areas. It connects alternate US 19 to US 19, as well as Omaha Street and Belcher Road. The majority of Nebraska Avenue is a rural type roadway with unpaved shoulders, sidewalk on the south side, intermittent sidewalk on the north side, and limited drainage infrastructure. The posted speed limit on Nebraska Avenue is 30 miles per hour. So how did this project get started? Over the years, Pinellas County has received a lot of complaints about drainage problems on Nebraska. Most of the road does not have storm pipes or ditches to capture rain runoff. So water fills the edge of the road and some of the sidewalks and runs onto private property. We've also received complaints about the gaps in sidewalk. A lot of the north side of the street has no sidewalk. Residents have also complained about concerns regarding speeding vehicles and pedestrian safety. The county's consultant examined the crash history along the roadway. Between 2015 and 2019, there were a total of 75 reported crashes. 10 of those crashes resulted in injuries. 81% of the crashes were a combination of rear end and angle crashes. 61% of the crashes occurred in or at intersections, and 36% occurred at unsignalized intersections. Additional crash data was obtained between 2021 and 2023. During that period, there were a total of 44 crashes. 59% of those crashes were a combination of rear end and angle crashes. 34% occurred at or near an intersection, and 25% occurred at unsignalized intersections. And finally, we have received complaints about speeding. The county installed speed radar signs a few years ago to try and slow down drivers. But even after that, data from those devices shows that 15% of cars are traveling more than 6 miles per hour over the speed limit. 15% represents more than 1,100 vehicles per day. Because of these concerns, in 2021, the Pinellas County Capital Improvements Division completed a project development study to identify ways to address safety, traffic flow, pedestrian facilities, and stormwater collection and conveyance systems along Nebraska Avenue from alternate 19 to Westlake Boulevard. As part of the study, the county's consultant reviewed planning documents that mentioned Nebraska Avenue. The Advantage Pinellas Active Transportation Plan, developed by Ford Pinellas, identified a multi-use path along Nebraska Avenue to connect neighborhoods along and off of Nebraska Avenue with the Pinellas Trail. The Downtown Palm Harbor Master Plan, which was the culmination of desired improvements identified by citizens and county planners, identified Nebraska Avenue as the area's primary east-west connection between alternate US 19 and US 19. That plan noted the need for redesign of Nebraska Avenue to include on-street parking and pedestrian improvements. So based on all of this, in 2022, the county began the design phase for improvements to Nebraska Avenue. In February of 2023, the county presented these potential improvements at the first public information meeting. Based on the study and plans mentioned previously, project goals were developed to address driver, pedestrian, and bicycle safety, reduce drainage runoff onto private property, and improve the downtown area consistent with previous improvements along Florida Avenue. The county received a significant amount of input from the public after the first meeting, and we heard you. Save the trees, don't put in a 10-foot trail, and you expressed concern about the mini roundabout. We also heard support for more sidewalks, a desire to improve drainage, and an interest in making the road safer. So now let's take a look at the major changes to the design. Adding the 10-foot trail on the north side of Nebraska Avenue and improving drainage was going to require taking out a lot of trees. During and after the first public meeting, citizens made it clear they did not want trees along Nebraska Avenue removed. The county and its consultant further examined the trees to determine their critical root zone. This information was transferred to the plans to then determine ways to limit the impact to trees. The proposed trail has been changed to a sidewalk and relocated and narrowed in areas to eliminate the need to remove many trees. One method of reducing the impact to trees is the creation of a stone filter around the root system. This stone filter area has been termed a rock burrito and allows the tree roots to remain and grow through the stone filter. These roots do not have to be cut in order to install the various improvements. The result is that we can save all but 5 trees, and 4 of those are growing in one clump near 16th and Nebraska. The affected trees are under existing power lines and will likely require additional trimming in the future. The drainage improvement plans are now drafted. They combine underground and above ground solutions to collect and remove rainwater. The improvements will include concrete curbs and gutters, drainage inlets, and shallow drainage swales that will capture runoff from the roadway and carry it away from Nebraska Avenue. Stormwater modeling is being performed as part of this project to make sure water is carried to appropriate outfall locations. The consultant has included an exfiltration system as part of the drainage design. This system includes perforated pipe that allows the water to flow through the holes in the pipe and filter through the stone fabric before it seeps into the ground. This particular design makes sure we have the necessary drainage capacity and also provides for water quality treatment. The proposed improvements for Nebraska Avenue are separated into 2 components: the downtown area west of Omaha Street and the residential area east of Omaha Street. This is an example plan view of Nebraska Avenue in the residential area. This view shows a segment east of 17th Street to just east of 19th Street. It shows proposed improvements of a 2-lane roadway with a sidewalk on both sides and shallow drainage swales for water quality. There are also no anticipated tree impacts along this segment, nor in the segment west of 16th Street. The illustration shows the typical design for the road and sidewalk in the residential area. There are 2 11-foot travel lanes, a sidewalk on the north side that varies from 6 to 8 feet to avoid trees. This sidewalk is narrower than the trail shown in the first plan, but is wide enough to be safe for kids riding their bikes to school along with people walking. The existing sidewalk on the south side remains. Concrete curb and gutter will be added along the entire section of the road. This is a plan view of Nebraska Avenue in the downtown area. This view shows proposed improvements of a 2-lane roadway with decorative intersections, sidewalk on both sides of the roadway, on-street parking, and a 4-way stop condition at 11th Street. The proposed typical section for the downtown area consists of 2 11-foot travel lanes, 8-foot sidewalks on both sides of the roadway, concrete curb and gutter, and on-street parking on the north side of Nebraska Avenue between alternate US 19 and 11th Street. 16th Street and Nebraska Avenue is in the center of the project area. It's a unique intersection in this project because of its traffic. Cars, pedestrians, and bikes all meet here. So we spent a lot of time focusing on this intersection. The county's Transportation Division performed a study of pedestrian and vehicular activity at 16th Street. This intersection is heavily used for access to the Palm Harbor University High School student drop-off area, 16th Street also serves the Palm Harbor YMCA, the Palm Harbor Activity Center, and the transportation team collected pedestrian crossing data at 16th Street in September and October of 2022. The data was collected from 7 to 10:30 a.m. and from 1:30 to 6:30 p.m. for 4 weekdays. During those hours, an average of 28 pedestrians were seen crossing Nebraska Avenue daily. As a result, a pedestrian crosswalk and rectangular rapid flashing beacon, also known as an RRFB, were added in October of this year. Photos of this intersection taken by the county's Transportation Division show a considerable amount of pedestrian and bicycle traffic crossing Nebraska Avenue. This intersection really does need safety improvements. Right now, this intersection is a two-way stop. On 16th Street, the cars have to have a stop sign. Cars on Nebraska do not. This is the least amount of traffic control you can have at an intersection. The next three types of intersections that provide more traffic control are a four-way stop, traffic signal, and a mini roundabout. Each of these type improvements were considered for this intersection. At first, a four-way stop seems like an easy solution. The pros are that pedestrians would have the right-of-way for all 4 crossings. This also is a fairly low-cost solution. However, there are downsides to the four-way stop. It has the lowest throughput of any of the options, so it would cause additional backups on Nebraska Avenue during peak hours. You could expect lengthy delays. Because of the lower throughput, it would require widening Nebraska Avenue to add left turn lanes for cars turning onto 16th Street. The widening would have an impact on several properties, and the stop sign would affect several homes that could experience blocked driveways due to the number of vehicles stopped at the intersection during peak traffic times. Remember our crash statistics? 81% of the crashes on this street have been a combination of rear end and angle crashes. The addition of a stop sign at this location could cause an increase in that statistic. Finally, because of the turn lanes, pedestrians would have a wider street to cross than they do now. And this also adds to the potential delay at the intersection. The next type of intersection considered was a traffic signal. There are requirements that must be met before a traffic signal can be installed. A study has not been done to determine whether a signal could be installed, but let's assume that it could. The pros of installing a traffic signal are the addition of a left turn lane arrow for the 16th Street. People understand how they work, and pedestrians would be able to cross when the traffic light is red. So what are the downsides? We all hate waiting for traffic lights. Anytime a car triggers a light on 16th Street, it would stop traffic on Nebraska. Just like the four-way stop, this would require adding turn lanes on Nebraska to keep traffic moving, which would create the same impacts on properties as the four-way stop intersection. Just like the four-way stop, traffic signals tend to increase rear-end crashes. And also, like the four-way stop, pedestrians end up having to cross a wider street with 3 lanes because of the new turn lanes. The mini roundabout was the next option considered. At first, we didn't think it would fit. The Federal Highway Administration and the Florida Department of Transportation have done extensive research on all types of intersections, and they have minimum design requirements for them. Because of the residential nature of the street, it turns out that the mini roundabout does fit and would meet the strict federal and state requirements. Because the other options require adding lanes, it turns out that we could use the mini roundabout in roughly the same amount of space required by the other options. So we started looking at this more seriously. We know some people have said they don't want it, But let's explain the mini roundabout option in more detail. It may be different from what you were thinking. The pros are reduces speeding, reduces crash severity, pedestrians can safely cross all streets at one lane at a time with flashing beacons. Crosswalks are set back from the intersection to reduce what drivers must pay attention to at once. There is continuous flow, provides a left turn solution for 16th Street, and less expensive to maintain. The downsides are may require a period of adjustment for the drivers. Splitter islands will restrict left turn access to 4 homes. This is a concept drawing. It's not complete, but gives you an idea of how it might look. This is a mini roundabout. There are several of these in the county already, and they have worked well where they've been constructed. This is another concept of the mini roundabout looking south. This is a plan view of the mini roundabout option at 16th Street. The mini roundabout would include marked pedestrian crossings across all 4 legs of the intersection and crosswalk flashers. Also shown here are the 6 to 8 foot sidewalks on the north side of the road and 4 to 6 foot sidewalks on the south side, as well as shallow drainage swales for water quality. As indicated earlier, there are 2 locations where trees would have to be removed. One location is a cluster of 4 right at the intersection, and there's 1 tree 3 houses to the west. Each of these trees have been trimmed due to the power lines and may require additional trimming in the future. Here's a closer view. So after studying this, we felt we had to recommend the mini roundabout. It keeps traffic moving and reduces the potential for future crashes. Let's look a little more closely at the design and how it works. Drivers naturally slow as they approach it because the lanes divide and curve slightly. They come to crosswalks before and after they go through the intersection instead of when they're in the intersection. So they pay more attention to pedestrians at the time when they actually encounter them. Cars yield to vehicles already in the roundabout. If no one is in the roundabout, they don't have to stop. They can slowly enter and go through or around the circle, keeping traffic flowing throughout and without having to turn lanes. Once you're in the roundabout, you have the right of way and can exit at any point. A left turn becomes an easy swing around the roundabout, which is much safer. Remember the crash data from this road. People run into each other from the back and the side. That's much less likely with this type intersection. Study after study has proven that roundabouts reduce the number of accidents. This is an aerial rendering of the mini roundabout. Note in this view that north is pointing down and to the right. There is an abundance of information regarding roundabouts on the Federal Highway Administration's website at highways.dot.gov and enter roundabout in the search bar. Even TV's Mythbusters did a study on roundabouts and proved that they're more efficient than 4-way stops. We have made a lot of changes to this project since the first draft. The smaller sidewalks, the innovative drainage solutions, and ways to save the trees have made this latest design a much better solution than the first draft. We very much appreciate everyone's input and ideas. Our responsibility is to propose the best solution based on the project goals and well-researched options. At the intersection of Nebraska and 16th Street, we have no doubt that the mini roundabout is the safest solution. We've heard that some members of the community oppose the roundabout, and we hope that giving you more information tonight has helped you take a new look at the challenges this intersection presents and the reasons we are recommending the mini roundabout. We appreciate everyone hanging on with us tonight. This was a lot of information to cover, but we thought it was important to be as transparent as possible. To recap, we've explained how we plan to save the trees. We showed the reduced size of the sidewalk and drainage improvements. We shared the plans for the east, downtown, and central sections of the project. And finally, we explained the intersection options for 16th Street and Nebraska Avenue, and why, in this case, the mini roundabout is our recommendation. So what's next? The project design is about 60% complete at this point. When this webinar ends, you'll see a link to the survey. We'll also post that on the project webpage at pinellas.gov/Nebraska Avenue. We'll review the feedback you provide and complete the design this spring. We expect to begin construction in late 2024 and finish in early 2026. Now I'll turn it back over to Tony and we can begin taking questions. Tony?
Thank you, Rob. Now we'll move into the portion of the meeting where we'll answer your questions and listen to your comments. Rob is going to stay on as a panelist. Rob, you can turn your camera on if you'd like. And
Okay.
I'll introduce the other three subject matter experts we have with us tonight. Panelists, when I call your name, please turn on your camera and say hello. First, our Transportation Division Director, Tom Washburn. Hi, Tom.
Good evening, Tony, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Next, our Consultant Project Manager from Stantec, Jason Yam. Hi, Jason.
Hi, everybody.
And also with us tonight, our Drainage Engineer of Record from Stantec, Jesse Pacheco. Hi, Jesse.
Hi, everyone.
Give me just a second to share a slide here. Okay. For tonight's meeting, you'll have three ways to ask a question or offer a comment. First, you can type a question into the Q&A box, and we'll answer them in the order they came in. Second, you can click on the raised hand icon to be placed into a queue to be called on to talk. And third, if you phoned in, you can press *9 on your keypad to be placed into the same queue. For those of you who are new to Zoom, if you move your cursor to the bottom of the screen, you'll bring up a toolbar that includes a Q&A icon and a raised hand, as you see on the slide. The toolbar may actually be at the top of the screen if you're on a mobile device. Again, if you want to type in your question, click on the Q&A button. If you want to speak, click on the raised hand. If you're having technical difficulties with Zoom, you can call in at the numbers shown on the screen. Our goal is to answer every question, and as we go through the process, we'll mix in typed questions and raised hands and take any call-ins that we get. Please, to be respectful of everybody's time, please limit your questions or comments to 2 minutes so that we can get to everybody. You're welcome to get back into the queue after your comment, and if there's time, we'll call on you again. Please note that we're going to avoid answering duplicate questions, and if you type a comment into the Q&A field, it will be recorded but not read aloud. As Kelly mentioned earlier, we are going to take one comment at a time. Let's work together to make tonight's meeting civil and productive so we can achieve our common goal of making this the best possible project. The Q&A portion of this meeting will be moderated by Transportation Engineer Joan Rice, and I'll introduce her now. Hi, Joan, you can take it away.
Thank you, Tony, and welcome everybody. We already have several questions added into the question and answer area, so we'll go ahead and get started. The first couple of questions are going to go to Rob Metter. So Rob, what is the name of the contractor and who made the decision to hire the contractor?
Okay, we are not complete with the design at this point, so we have not hired a contractor. Now, if you're actually referring to a consultant, then that went through a process of selection that we do here in the county. So we select consultants that are qualified for the work. and that can perform what we are asking them to perform. We have many consultants that do different tasks. So we look for the one that is best fit, best suited for this project.
Thank you, Rob. The next question is about trees, Rob. Is the 2 trees for all of Nebraska or just for the roundabout?
The trees at 16th in Nebraska?
Yes.
Okay. Those trees are being removed as a result of the roundabout. And it is likely that if we don't do the roundabout and we're to do a four-way stop, or there's traffic signal, there is the likelihood that those trees would still be impacted.
But just for clarifying, it's not 2 trees. We're talking about 5 trees and 2 clumps.
That is correct.
And those are the only trees along Nebraska that you intend to remove.
That is the intent. Now, everyone needs to keep in mind, though, that as construction begins, when we get out there, there may be other impacts that we are not aware of. But we have done everything possible within the design of this project to reduce and limit those number of impacts to trees.
Thank you, Rob. One more question for you, Rob. Will the county listen to the community? And if there is a resounding no to the roundabout, will the county discontinue the plan to install one?
That's a fair question. And I think the fair answer is that our recommendation is the mini roundabout for the reasons that we've stated in the presentation tonight. Now, to say that we won't listen to the community, that is not correct. And we have listened to the community. And I think we showed that pretty well tonight. And it is our intent to always do that. We can't satisfy everyone with our project. And what we need to focus on as engineers and as a county is to focus on the overall users of the project, Roadway, and all of its appurtenances. So we need to take all of that into account and do the best we can to make this road safe for all users. And that is our focus.
Thank you, Rob. Next question is going to Tom Washburn. Tom, if there is a 4-way stop, why would there need to be any turn lanes? I mean, that makes no sense.
Yep. Another good question. Yeah, when we're talking about 16th Street, what Rob highlighted was that's probably the busiest non-signalized intersection. There are traffic generators to the north and south of the intersection that does create some left turns. With a 4-way stop, what you're looking at is every vehicle that comes at an intersection is going to be required to stop. So we're going to need those extra turn lanes just to handle the capacity.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Rob, another question to you. What about the impacts to the people who live at the intersection of 16th and Nebraska? House properties decline, safety issues with the homes on the 4 corners, and the front door of the home at 1124 16th Avenue Street.
We have looked at that as a part of the design. That's one reason why we're looking at a mini roundabout instead of a larger one. We want to fit all of the improvements that we're proposing throughout this project within the existing right-of-way. And as a result, at that intersection, there is no right-of-way impact. Now, we do take up a lot of property within the existing right-of-way to build this roundabout. So that is the case. That is a fact. But in looking at the impacts, we know that there are some impacts to driveways relative to ingress and egress. And we are still looking at options for that. And we will continue to as we go through the design process. But what we're looking at now is that we'll require some of those property owners to actually take a right out of their driveway and go around the roundabout, or use some of the other streets within the Palm Harbor area to maneuver to get back to what their intended destination is going to be.
Thank you, Rob. Tony, do you want to take a few raised hands?
Sure. We have a call in from a number that ends in 55, and I'm going to unmute you. And if you unmute yourself, you can go ahead and make your comment.
Hi there.
Hi there, we can hear you.
Hi. My understanding is the roundabout will still have flashing, the flashing lights, like they'll push the button to cross through the roundabout. to, cross Nebraska. Is that correct?
That is correct. Jason.
So
that
why
is
not?
So
why
I'm
not
sorry.
just
I'm
have
sorry.
both?
Jason, it's on all four corners, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, okay. So it's going to be a roundabout plus the flashing lights to cross. Why not just have the flash lights to cross?
Okay. Rob, you want to tackle that question? I think that it's combining having the RRFBs or a signal.
Yeah, we could add just the RRFBs, but that does not address the traffic. That only addresses the pedestrian crossings. And you got to keep in mind that there is a speeding issue, as we discussed in the presentation, along Nebraska. So the roundabout actually has two effects. One, it helps to slow down traffic, provide some traffic calming aspects, and then it also helps direct the traffic through and around that intersection for the left turns, and then helps the pedestrians cross only 2 lanes of traffic instead of 3 in that case. And the RFBs would be activated by the pedestrian to help them cross in those marked crosswalks.
Okay. May I ask another quick one? You said there's going to be parking on Nebraska from Omaha to Alt 19. Why is there going to be, is there a need for street parking on the north side from Omaha to Alt 19 on Nebraska on the north side?
Jason, I believe the parking is just in the downtown area, that first block, correct?
Correct. Yes. There's a lot of parking on the existing grassed areas today, so that in the future we want to make sure we accommodated those and not take away parking. So we added the spots where we could in the downtown area. Mm-hmm.
But
Is
does
that
it
gonna
go
be
all the way to Omaha?
No, I believe it's only up to 11th Street. So it's between Alt 19 and 11th Street. We have 2 sections of on-street parking on the north side of the road.
Interesting. Is it going to be diagonal or parallel parking?
They're diagonal.
Oh, so that means the street's going to be that much wider.
The lanes are the same width as they are today, but there will be more pavement for the parking.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
for the question.
Okay.
Joan,
Yes.
we have another raised hand from
Okay.
Eileen Howe. Eileen, I'm going to unmute you, and if you would unmute yourself, you can ask your question or make your comment.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes,
We
we can. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of read something real quick and then ask a couple questions. I live at 1518 Nebraska. I am on the southwest corner in front of
Eileen, I think you muted in the middle there. We got your address and that was it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So I live on the southwest corner of Nebraska at 16th, where the roundabout is going to go. I have a lot of concerns about it. I have felt that the roundabout in Alt 19 seems to be working well because it's a non-residential street. We have so many things that come through the street for frequent stops, 5 or 6, 5 or 6 trash companies, FedEx, UPS, you know everything. Roundabouts can get backed up, and especially when you have stops like that. Now, of course, I think the argument you'll make is that can happen with red lights, stoplights, things like this. Concerns I have are that in an emergency, when EMS and sheriffs are coming through, how are they going to get through the roundabout in a timely manner? They get called frequently to the high school, the YMCA, the center for different medical issues, whatever. That's one of my concerns. The second concern I have about the roundabout is people can still speed through a roundabout. We've had 3 crashes in the last several years into people's homes that I know of. Not on Nebraska, but speeding people through a roundabout sounds a little airborne to me. And obviously I want to protect myself and my property. Another concern that I do have is the splitter island, of course, now does not allow me to ever back out of my driveway. It also never allows me to make a left-hand turn into my driveway. So selfishly, I'm concerned about that. So those are just a couple of concerns and statements I have. Now I have a question or two for you. Since you put in the RRFBs, which was October, I personally have noticed I have not seen any hits, misses, crashes, anything like that. I have noticed that the community has slowed down quite a bit. There are still occasional speeders that, unless the sheriff sees them and gives them a $158 ticket, that's not going to stop even with a roundabout. So I'm wondering if you've done studies since October. And another question, this is just relatively minor in the scope of things because I already have high blood pressure now worrying about this roundabout in front of my house. When the project starts, how are we going to get mail delivery? Are you going to be responsible for moving our mailboxes to and fro? And I'm exasperated now, so I'll just stop at that and see what you can help me with here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You have quite a list of questions there. And just for a little bit, because you are specifically at that corner, we can even sit down one-on-one with you and go through some of this information with you. But I'm going to pass it to Tom to answer some of the questions about the roundabout and the splitter islands, and even the information about the study after the RFBs were placed. Tom?
Yep, thanks. And thanks, Eileen, for your questions. I'll do my best to summarize, and I'll let Rob and Jason jump in with whatever I miss. You had a comment about emergency response, and I believe Rob covered it, but the center island is designed such that emergency vehicles can go through the intersection without having to slow down or have to traverse around the roundabout. So that's one of the benefits to the way they're set up, is that it doesn't slow down emergency response. You had a question about the splitter islands, and yes, that will have an impact as Rob described. And it'd probably be best to work with you one-on-one to identify what those impacts are, to see what alternatives there are. I don't know if it might be a possibility in your case, for instance, to relocate your driveway over to 16th Street and leave some of that. But there are options and things that we can discuss one-on-one and with something that'll work for you. But I would imagine that most of the residents that live on Nebraska, when they're turning left off Nebraska into their driveway, it gets a little hairy if you see somebody pulling up, behind you at a fast rate of speed. So again, the goal of this is to, make a safety improvement at that intersection along Nebraska as a whole. Regarding the RFB that we installed, yes, we did do before studies. We've done some after studies, and based on feedback we've gotten from the community, we've also started looking at 14th Street, and we've completed a study there. And it looks like we will be recommending the installation of another RFB there in the interim, at least until this project gets completed. So I hope I answered most of your questions. Rob or Jason, anything you'd like to add?
I'll just add one thing about the mailboxes. That was I think the final question. During construction, the contractor is required to maintain mail service. So either the post office boxes, either the mailboxes will be reset in different locations or maintained in their existing location, or set up such that mail delivery can be made. That is a requirement in our contracts, and they have, I guess, always really adhered to that. There have been some innovative ideas in some locations, but I don't even think that would be an impact on this particular roadway. But they do have to maintain that, so you will continue to get your mail.
Well, and if I could ask this question, I understand we'll continue to get our mail, but some people are on a fixed income. If the mailboxes are probably going to have to be moved because you're taking some of the right of way, are you going to fund that and take care of it?
Okay. But we're not taking any right of way. Just want to make that clear. Everything is working inside of the existing right of way along Nebraska Avenue. Now, secondly, any mailbox that is removed and damaged will be replaced by
Okay,
the contractor. So that is not an expense that the property owner has to take on. No.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Rob and Joan, we have 40 questions in the Q&A, so we'll move back over to the Q&A now, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, the next question is going to go to Rob. You shared an image of the mini roundabout southbound. Do you have an image showing northbound?
We do not have a rendering of that in the northbound direction. It would look very similar to the southbound. The approaches, well, relatively similar in all directions, really, because all directions have the splitter island. The best we could provide is to go back to the aerial that was in the presentation, and you could see the northbound direction at that point. But we had two renderings put together, one in the southbound direction and one in the westbound direction.
Thank you, Rob. Tom, next question. Is this roundabout going to make it worse to make a left from 19th Street onto Nebraska?
I don't think I followed the question. The roundabout.
Okay. I think that they're concerned that the roundabout at 16th is going to do some things to make it difficult for somebody to make a left from 19th.
I don't think a roundabout at 16th is going to make it any more difficult. I think some of the other options that we've taken a look at, there is the potential, that traffic will back up certainly during peak periods. That could impact some of the other side streets and make it a little more difficult to make left turns. But I think, the whole purpose of the mini roundabout and what we're anticipating is that traffic will continue to flow at a slightly lower speed, preferably closer to the posted speed limit.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. The next one is a comment I'd like to read to you. I do not find drivers pay more attention to pedestrians in a mini roundabout. That is certainly not the case at the one at Alt 19. Drivers do not even see you. They're focusing on the roundabout. I appreciate you giving us a comment, and we'll take a look at that. Thank you. Moving on to the next question is, can you pull up or share the link to the revised map so those of us on Nebraska can see how the revised plans might impact their homes? And I guess, Tony, you're going to share a link at the end of the program, correct? That'll take us to the project website, and doesn't that have the information on it, or will it?
Yeah, yes, Joan, there's quite a bit of information on the project website, and we'll put up that link on a slide at the end of the program.
Okay, thank you. And that's the Pinellas.gov, and you can type in Nebraska in the search and it'll take you to it as well. So, okay, the next one is, thank you for all this work. Excited for the roundabout and the sidewalk. So thank you very much for that. The next question is the website for US DOT for roundabouts. Is that a website that we can put up maybe on the website as well?
We certainly can. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one is, please consider to also install speed cameras. I'm going to pass the speed camera question over to Tom Washburn, please.
Thanks, Joan. Yeah, speed cameras, they're pretty controversial. The county does not install those right now. When we had the red light running program, again, that was very controversial. A lot of negative feedback from the public. They just did pass a law last year regarding speed cameras in school zones. So I would say, that might be something that the county might consider in the future, but right now, there's not really an appetite to consider that type of technology. We do have the speed feedback signs out there that does record data 24/7. We do pull that out regularly, and if there are pockets of speeding patterns, we do provide that to law enforcement for directed patrols.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, Tom, if you could, why are turning lanes required on 16th Street for a stop signs, but not at the corner of 11th? And why not a mini roundabout at 11th Street as well?
Good questions. I think, again, at 16th Street, this is where we've got quite a few turning vehicles. We know that just based on land uses to the north. And with the amount of traffic we have on Nebraska, we would expect that if all this traffic stopped and came to a stop without the additional capacity of the turn lanes, the backups would be pretty significant. We can certainly take a closer look at 11th Street, but we've been operating that with an RRFB for some time. We have had requests to consider that as a multi-way stop, and we've taken a very close look at that as well because we're concerned about eastbound traffic backing up to 19. So that's not quite a done deal yet either. There's more analysis to be done.
Okay. And just so you know, we have 39 questions out there, so please be patient with us as we work through all these. The next question is going to go to Jesse. Hi, great presentation. You spoke of drainage. Where is the water from street flooding or urban flooding being routed to? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So there's going to be multiple ultimate discharge points. We're still going through the modeling to determine the best location, but ultimately all of the street drainage is going to be collected by the curb inlets. So rather than in the existing condition where it just drains off into the residential yards, it'll be collected by the inlets and discharge into the swales or exfiltration trenches. And then they will be collected through the storm drains and go on to their discharge points.
Thank you very much. Next question is to Rob. Thank you. So based on this presentation, am I correct that the mini roundabout is locked in and we can't stop it? Rob, I think that you kind of answered this question once before, but will you try again for me?
Sure, I'll try again. Maybe I'll get it right this time. Yeah, what we're looking at is what our recommendation are now, or is for this particular location as well as the entire project. And we do believe and truly feel that from an engineering perspective, looking at safety, looking at traffic flow, that the mini roundabout is the best option for this location. However, nothing on this project is locked in at this point. We still have a lot of design aspect that we still need to go through, a lot more analysis that has to be done before we can actually get to final plans. So I'll reiterate with this that we are at the 60% complete design plan phase now. That's the last set of plans that were delivered by the consultant and reviewed by the county. We still have to go to 90% and 100%. There is a lot of work that always takes place between the 60%, which is a little bit closer to conceptual, but with good information, to get all the way to 90%. We go through a permitting phase, and we go through a lot of the calculations that have to be locked in to actually prove that the project works in total. So there's a lot of work that still has to be done.
Thank you. Okay, Rob, one more question here for you. Some residents east of 17th Street have needs for 2 curb cuts in order to maintain the current and historical access to the property. How will this need be addressed? Are you putting back every driveway?
If there is what we call horseshoe driveways, if a particular property currently has 2 access points, we will build those back. If a property has 1 access point, we will build that 1 access point back. That is the way we typically handle our projects and access to residential and commercial businesses.
Okay. And Rob, I'm sorry, but you're continuing to get the same question here. I believe I heard that the planning of the project is at 60%. Based on the city and county recommending the mini roundabout, what is the likelihood of that recommendation to be further be altered or improved, or to move away from the roundabout recommendations?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of work that has to be done to even finalize the roundabout if that sticks with this project, as we recommend. Looking at the specific design of the roundabout, that will continue until the plans are done to determine if there are potential changes that can help with access points. That part is not a given. That is something that we will continue to analyze to see if there are other chances or other opportunities to work within that. Again, I did respond previously that is our recommendation. That is what we would propose to address the safety and traffic flow needs for this particular roadway. But we still look at all the different options that are available to us to determine which is the best.
Okay, I guess we're going to take a couple of hands raised first next. So,
Sure. John Halbeck, if you, I've just unmuted you, and if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can ask your question or make your comment.
No, thank you very much. This is very informative. The question is as Eileen spoke earlier, I live right next door to her and at 1512. What's going to happen for us? The 4 residents on the corner of 16th and Nebraska are being impeded with this mini roundabout, being impeded from making left turns in our driveways. What's can be done, because if this plan were to come to fruition, I'm not going to be able to back out of my driveway. Will there be something for me to put in a circular drive?
Okay, Tom, can you answer this question about him backing out and the splitter islands being in the way?
Sure. Yeah, I think Mr. Holback will have to, just like with Eileen, we'll have to meet with you one-on-one to really dig into the impacts that's going to be created for you personally. To see if there is an option for you to back out, and then come up with the options for you to be able to, get to your property when you're out trying to get back home. But without digging into the details and probably working with you one-on-one, it's hard to speculate exactly what we might be able to do, but we'll certainly work with you to come up with an acceptable alternative.
And then I have one more question for Rob. You mentioned that emergency vehicles, trucks, and et cetera would be able to drive over the roundabout. What's to say that regular traffic won't either?
Especially high school kids.
Especially high school kids. And with that, I'll yield.
Okay. And that's a good question. Basically, we look at the traffic laws that would be in place, and that's not built for vehicles to just traverse willy-nilly. There is a distinct difference between that roundabout and the roadway. The roundabout will have a curb, a mountable curb around it, and then on top of it, in the middle, it'll have a pattern of some kind. It will not be grassed, so we don't have to have someone go out there and mow it routinely. It'll have a brick pattern or something of that nature, so that there's a distinct difference of what's out there. Plus, when we look at the approaches to the roundabout, those do have a slight bend in them to direct that traffic, that vehicle around that circular unit inside the roundabout. So reasonably speaking, that is the direction that vehicles will take. Now, we can't prevent everyone from doing just anything. That does happen from time to time. But what we find when we look at these is that people stay on the roadway because it is uncomfortable to mount that curb and go over top of that. So they'll want to stay on that. Now, just saying that, I do want to be clear. I have talked with Chief Brewer and Fire Marshal Fisher, spoke with them this afternoon, and they are well aware of what we're proposing. We've actually discussed this with them multiple times. Their biggest concerns are relative to access and making sure that this does not impede their access to properties for response times. And it doesn't. It does allow them to mount that center unit within the roundabout area safely and at decent speeds. Not speeding, of course. They don't even speed when they're responding, but it does allow them to mount that. It's just not the most comfortable thing that you want to do. So there is some factor of deterrent there.
Thank you, Rob. Tony?
Joan, for anybody who is wants to view the project website while you're listening, the address is pinellas.gov/Nebraska Ave. And we have a raised hand from Marta Falcon. Marta, I'm going to unmute you and you can unmute yourself and ask your question or make your comment. Marta?
Go ahead. Marta, we can't hear you. Marta? It looks like you're unmuted, but we don't hear anything.
Okay, well, why don't we go back to the Q&A and we'll work with Marta.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's see. The next question, Tom, I'll probably pass it to you, but has any comparison study been made with a high pedestrian traffic roundabout on Clearwater Beach? How has that roundabout been accepted by the business community? I think that roundabout is extremely different from this roundabout.
Yeah, I don't want to dig too much into it. I'll say that was probably the first roundabout. And I'll say that the city of Clearwater and all of us learned a lot about roundabouts with that project. There has been some redesign that has a lot of legs that come into it. I think I'll just leave it at that. There've been a lot of problems. They made some retrofits. They've got the legs signalized now, so they've had a lot of challenges with that. I would say, if anything, we're the benefit of lessons learned.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, this is a question about trees again, Rob. Will any trees be removed on the north side because of the sidewalk?
Per the plan right now, no.
But you did put in those rock burritos, so we're actually saving trees and still getting the sidewalk in.
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. I guess I'm going to send this one to you, Tom. With the mini roundabout, this does not address the traffic issues that will affect the surrounding and neighboring roads, such as 16th Street and Indiana. High school students speed down Indiana Avenue at 6th Street daily, and then blow the stop sign at 15th to turn on Nebraska. What will be done to help speeding traffic down Indiana Avenue between 16th and 15th Street, with students wishing to avoid the traffic circle when leaving back entry of school? There are many children and elderly living on Indiana.
Right, another good question, and it's fair. Again, we know we're making some impacts, and we know it's going to change some travel patterns. I will say that we spend a lot of time every year working with the high school, so we are aware of some of the issues that the neighbors up there are facing with the students either being picked up or dropped off, or students that are driving. We'll continue to work with those individual complaints. We'll continue to work with the school and the school resource officer, and we'll take whatever measures we can to help alleviate that. And if there's concerns that are going on today, please feel free to reach out to us at Pinellas County, and we'll address them.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the next question is to Rob. I walk Palm Harbor frequently, and I don't see much foot traffic on Nebraska's sidewalks. When I walk into town from West Lake Boulevard, I use Florida or another side road to avoid the noise and smell of traffic on Nebraska. Most school kids I see are walking north or south to and from Palm Harbor University High School. My question is a north sidewalk really necessary? And if it is left out, will the extra space save some trees and help reduce the impact on property owners?
Okay. First, I'll go to the end. And what we've done so far in terms of the redesign is to meander that sidewalk around and to narrow it so that it doesn't have impact on vegetation. So no trees are proposed for removal on the north side. Secondly, on a heavily traveled road like this, like Nebraska or any other collector roadway within the county, we shy away from putting sidewalk on only one side, because when that happens, you're focusing all the pedestrians on only one side of the roadway. And so what happens? Obviously, they have to cross. And pedestrians don't always cross at intersections. They don't always cross at even the crosswalks with the flashing signals that we put in. So to limit that and hopefully eliminate as much of it as we can, we put sidewalks on both sides to make the roadway more pedestrian friendly and safer for the pedestrian in that respect, creating fewer crossings and creating the pedestrian network on both sides to get the pedestrians where they need to go. Again, looking at the nature of Nebraska Avenue and the activity centers that are on the north side, being the high school, the YMCA, and the activity center, all off of 16th Street. And there are other things in the area as well. It helps them to gain access to that in a safe manner.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, because we are continuing to have more questions added. So we're still at 45 questions to go through. So the next question will be for Tom. Since the construction will impact the flow of traffic on Nebraska, what would be the alternate traffic flow through the surrounding trees, through the surrounding streets and areas? Sounds like a detour question.
Yep, absolutely. And, the official detour, county's policy is that the detour will, whatever impacts and lane closures we have on Nebraska during construction, the detour will take that traffic to a road of like function. So, we won't officially detour traffic onto the local streets. That being said, this area of Palm Harbor has a pretty good grid network. People will be able to find their way around. So we would expect, at least the locals to be able to get around any type of lane closures. Anybody who was up there and experienced the construction of the roundabout at Florida, understands that there are some challenges, with constructing this. The goal is to keep the lanes open as much as possible. If that involves doing traffic during off-peak periods, at night, on the weekends, certainly we'll be looking at all of that.
Thank you, Tom. Let's see, the next question will go to Rob. It's about trees. Would it be possible in the plans to replace what trees are or need to be taken down with new trees?
We are actually required to. So whatever trees are removed, we will work with our urban forestry department out of Public Works to look at what replacements need to be made and where. Basically, as we go through the design, we'll look at those locations. And then after the project is complete, our urban forestry division will come in and do those plantings.
And probably put them in places that they wouldn't be in way of the power lines too.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Next question is about street lighting, Tom. We appreciate all the well thought out plan you have presented, especially as it relates to safety, and look forward to its completion as you have described. Can you take a moment to discuss the lighting plan for Nebraska through to Alt 19?
Sure. What I'll say is currently the county does not have a lighting program other than residential street lighting. So at this point, I don't think we have plans for any lighting. That being said, we are testing solar powered lighting as a way to offset some of those recurring electric costs. And certainly in the roundabout, that seems to be, one of those locations that, is promising for solar type lighting. So we'll continue to look at that. Like I said, right now that the county just doesn't have a program for arterial lighting.
Okay. Thank you. Let's give Marta a chance to, actually, it looks like Marta has lowered her hand. Tony.
Well, Marta, let's try one more time. I've unmuted you, and if you would like to unmute yourself, you can make your comment or ask your question. We still can't hear you. So what I would suggest is that you type your question or comment into the Q&A. And if you want to leave your name and phone number, we'll make sure that somebody gets back with you.
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
Okay, Tony, will you introduce the number 55 as she spoke earlier?
Okay.
oh, I'm sorry. I got
no,
a message that said to unmute.
Okay. Joan, let's go to the Q&A, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pass this next question to Jason Yam, and maybe you can explain what's going on to the east. I just want to thank all of the people who worked hard, listened to the feedback, and remain committed to making this safer for kids. We have to remember that the safety of kids take priority over the trees. I would like to ask what the improvements towards 19th and Westlake Boulevard look like. Will there be crosswalks or other measures to make those intersections safer and traffic flow better? Jason, could you tell us a little bit about the design there to the east?
Sure. Going east, 19th Street's gonna have a crosswalk crossing 19th Street. And then going across Westlake Boulevard, we're gonna be basically keeping the crosswalks that's going across Westlake, and as well as the crosswalk that's going across Nebraska. There's a island where kind of the northeast corner of the Westlake intersection. Currently it's painted, so we're gonna go ahead and harden that and make that permanent, just to kind of increase safety there for the pedestrians.
Thank you.
There's also gonna be a curb and gutter in that area as well, just like the rest of the project. That'll help with the drainage and as also with traffic calming.
Okay, thank you. Rob, is that information for the entire length of the project going to be on the website, or just what you showed in the presentation?
We'll put the presentation up, but excuse me, but we can also put the whole, what we call a roll plot that would show the project area from alternate US 19 to Westlake up there, so everyone can see what the improvement at this stage is proposed to be, keeping in mind that that can change as we go through the rest of the design process.
Okay, thank you. Rob, I've got another tree question. There's a tree right beside Nebraska Avenue in my front property on the north side with no current sidewalk. I don't see how you can keep this and still put in a sidewalk. I'm fine with it being removed.
Okay. Well, hopefully for the community's situation, we don't want to remove that. But I'm not sure where you're actually located. If you could put your address in the chat, then we could address that a little bit better. But in looking at all of the properties through here and all of the right of way and the availability, our consultant has done a really good job of working that sidewalk within the area necessary to save the trees. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on. With all the digging, trenching for swales and other landscape disturbance along Nebraska, what remediation may be expected in terms of landscaping benefits? Rob, can you answer anything about landscaping in the existing right-of-way?
Okay. Handle this delicately because I don't want to say everything's removed. But with the exception of trees, most anything that's within the right of way would be removed because that right of way area is going to be impacted. But even saying that, we want to handle this as delicately as we can to limit the impact to landscaping. Now, it depends on what you're talking about, where it is, how dense it is. If you're talking about something that's close to the right of way, that may be able to stay. If you're talking about landscaping that basically takes over a large part of the right of way that we're going to need for the roadway improvement, then that's probably going to be removed. It's hard to say specifically without knowing exactly where you are and what you're talking about.
So if anybody has any questions specifically for their home, it'd be best to give a call to Kathy tomorrow or, in the next few weeks, and we can look at each individual home if you'd like to.
Yes.
Okay, the next question is about 14th Street or RFB. And Tom, maybe you can answer this. Are there any plans for the crossing at 14th Street or RFB?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, I think I addressed that previously briefly. Based on the feedback that we've gotten from the community, we have taken another look at 14th Street, and we've just completed our data collection. There is pretty significant demand of school students crossing there, so we are looking at where it might be best to add an RFB in that location.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, the next one is to Rob, and it's about businesses, and I don't think that we're touching any businesses. Is that correct? At Nebraska and 11th, what will be the impact of the 4 businesses on the corner? That's Nebraska and 11th.
There should be no impact. Again, we're working everything within the existing right of way. Some of the changes that we're making at that intersection includes, first, on the north side, the parking, the diagonal parking that we're proposing. We're revising the entrance to the bank. And we've already discussed that with the bank, and they are highly in favor of that. The access to the parking lot at the northwest corner, we're revising that, and we have had conversations with the owner of that parking lot already. We'll continue to have those conversations. On the other corners, there should be no impact. As we look at it now with the plans that we have, we are widening the sidewalk, but most of that widening is still taken care of within the right of ways, maybe closer to the roadway or closer to the right of way line, but it's all within the right of way.
Thank you very much. Okay, and Rob, this question is regarding the sidewalk width. Why does a sidewalk need to be 8 feet when FDOT requirement is only 5 feet?
That is very true. The minimum requirement that DOT has is 5 feet. If the sidewalk is at the back of the curb, then we add an additional foot to that. That's basically the standard. When we are in high traffic zones, high pedestrian traffic zones, we like to try and accommodate those, especially when we are close to schools and we know that there's a lot of bike traffic, mostly kids riding their bikes to school. To accommodate that, and it is typically done either through the school development or through roadway improvements to widen that sidewalk to 8 feet. That is something we've discussed with the school board for many, many years. And they have asked us to do that to help them with that in all their locations. So we try to make that accommodation near schools or within heavy pedestrian walk zones like this.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, Tony, you want to take somebody with a hand raised?
Yeah, sure. Mr. Cave, I'm going to unmute you and you can unmute yourself and make your comment or ask your question.
Okay, it's not working. Can you try?
No, we can hear you, sir.
You can hear me or not, so.
You can go ahead and ask your question, Mr. Cave.
So, try it again.
Mr. Cave, can you hear us?
Problems here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
The other way around, I can't hear you. So I'm not sure why I can't hear you. So I'm going to speak and hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. So a couple of questions, real simple. I understand what you're saying about the 5 foot, 8 foot trail. The only concern I have with that is golf carts. What are you going to do to restrict golf carts using that trail? that becomes a dangerous position for the people living along Nebraska, because golf carts will use that. And if they're at night, when they're going along with no lights on, it's a dangerous proposition for people pulling out their driveway. So that's one question. I don't expect an answer on that because I can't hear you. So let me go through my questions first. The median on the roundabout, what is the size of the landing on it for safety for the people going across the road? I use the roundabout on alternate 19 all the time as a pedestrian, and the landing, you need the landing there. The traffic doesn't always stop both directions when the lights are flashing, even though it's supposed to. We get caught many times where traffic stops one way but not the other way. So that's really important. The house on 16th Street, 1124, that is hugely impacted by this roundabout. The rendering that you showed does not give a credibility to the actual land they have in front of the property, which is county land, that will go away. Their front door now effectively sits on the sidewalk with about a foot or so from the sidewalk, which is less than 6 feet away from the road there. So that creates a huge safety issue for that house. What are going to be the answers for that? I haven't heard the people at that house speak up yet, but that is a concern that I think they have and everyone else does. And the other question, speed tables. Why not use speed tables instead of the roundabout? Speed tables with RFPs at the corners. The speed tables have a natural process of slowing traffic down. They also make people aware there's something going on, so they can see if there's a crossing there, they will stop. So anyway, that's mine. I'm going to mute. Hopefully I will be able to hear you guys. I can't hear you at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And there were several questions there. I'm going to go first to Tom. Tom, maybe you can talk about golf carts as well as the speed humps. And then I'm going to pass it to Rob to explain if there's any concerns with any particular property, we can talk with them individually. So Tom first.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, John. Yeah, regarding the golf carts, they're not allowed on sidewalks by state statute. In order for us to consider that, the county would have to pass an ordinance. And to date, the county has not had an appetite to allow that. We're aware, the Westlake Village is the newest golf cart community that we've approved, and we have been working with them. We understand they have a desire to get into the downtown Palm Harbor area. So we're working with them on options. They've got some property, if you're familiar with the neighborhood, along Village Drive. They've got a vacant parcel, and we think we can get them over to Kansas Street and over to 16th and then into the downtown area. If golf carts are on the sidewalks, that becomes an enforcement issue. And again, we partner closely with the sheriff's office when we get those complaints, and we request directed patrols, and they're typically very responsive to that. Regarding the speed tables, I know we've had a lot of questions about that. In order for those to be effective, the FHWA has quite a bit of information. A single speed table doesn't have the impact on speed reduction that you'd be looking for. They're not appropriate for the type of road that Nebraska is, being a collector / arterial type of road. Speed tables and speed humps are really appropriate where you've got traffic volumes, low traffic volumes like a neighborhood residential street. And again, for them to be effective for speed control, you need to place them about 500 feet apart. And then you get into issues with emergency response. This is a primary route for emergency response. This does become an impact for them. When we used to have traffic humps in our residential program, we always invited those to the public meetings, and the feedback that they gave to the residents is, if you install them, just understand that there's, a 5 to 10 second delay for every speed hump they have to go over in an emergency response. And again, when we're talking about a road like Nebraska, every 500 feet, that's 10 or 11 of them within a 1 mile section. So that's why on a road like Nebraska, they're really not an appropriate type of device to consider.
Okay. So. Thank you, Tom. And there are questions following that are also talking about speed humps. So I'm assuming that question's answered for those as well, but speak up if we get to those and you think more needs to be added. And Rob, I'm going to ask you to answer the next question, but what Mr. Cave had asked was for 1124 16th Street, and that person has a question in further down. So maybe we can just answer that question when we get to it. It's only like 4 questions down.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Tony, did you want to take one more raised hand?
Sure, Joan. This is a repeat, second question from the phone number 2955. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, if this is just a confirming what the fellow said about the flashing lights so close to the roundabout where you actually start turning, you know, if those flashing lights can just be further back, because people do more worry about being in the roundabout than seeing the flashing lights and stopping. It was just an agreement to a previous statement.
Okay. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. We'll take a look at that. Yes, we'll take a look at that. The next question is about crash reports, and I believe that we have a slide on this if you need it, Tom. What is the accident crash report for 16th and Nebraska Avenue? How many accidents have happened there? And Rob, please jump in if you know that as well.
Yeah, I don't recall the exact number of crashes. I think most of those intersections had somewhere in the area of between 4 and 7, you know, over that 4-year period.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Rob, do you want to add anything to that, or can we get back to this person?
We can certainly get back to that individual. At that, was the question primarily at 16th?
It said specifically 16th and Nebraska, just at the intersection, not the entire length.
Okay. All right. At that intersection, if my memory serves me correctly, there were 5 accidents there. And then they varied at each of the other intersections between, like Tom said, between 4 and 7, I believe it is, maybe 8.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is going to go to Rob. It's about landscaping. I use my current front area where you're going to do the drainage as extra parking, and to make it easier to pull out onto Nebraska. Do I have to have the grass? My entire yard is xeriscape, and if so, will the county mow it?
I'm not sure if I can really answer that question, because I need to know the specific location and how everything is going to sit in front of that particular property relative to the curb and the sidewalk. Okay. If you want to give us your address, I'd be more than happy to come out there and meet with you, and we can have Jason and my project manager Kathy there as well to help address that.
Wonderful, good idea. And the next question is about speed bumps, but we've already talked about speed bumps. Now we're going to the question about from 11/24/16. Your plan for the roundabout, and Rob, if you could answer this question. Your plan for the roundabout places the sidewalk pretty much right up against my house and the road only about 8 feet from my home. I feel this will put my home and family in danger of a car hitting my home. This is a neighborhood street. Why are we more concerned with traffic flow than safety? Why are speed humps or tables not being considered?
Okay, we've already addressed, excuse me, we've already addressed the speed humps and the tables. Relative to your property, I know that Kathy Fernandez has spoken to you previously, and we can do that again. And again, we are still looking at that particular roundabout configuration. And we've had some conversations with Stantec, our consultant, about that, and we will continue to look at it. And we do understand that as that approach comes by your property and across that area into the roundabout, that it does swing closer to your property. So we will continue to take a look at that, and be more than happy to meet with you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, do any of you drive on Nebraska? It is very skinny. And are you widening the road for the cars too? And will you be putting sidewalks on the side streets leading to Nebraska since children use the side streets also? And will the drainage be fixed on the side streets off of Nebraska? 17th still floods. Rob, could you address this, please? This project is just for Nebraska, correct?
It is. It is just for Nebraska. I might have um, Jason address the widths and that relativity of what we have now and what is going to be proposed.
Sure, Rob. Yeah, the existing lanes today are 11 feet wide. We're going to hold that for the proposed design. It meets all the minimum criteria for this type of roadway. So it'll be 11-foot wide lanes throughout the corridor, except at the roundabout where it does widen a little bit for the roundabout lanes.
Thank you very much. Rob, I'm going to read this and maybe you can answer a little bit about it. Those of us who live in downtown Palm Harbor had little input into the Florida Avenue roundabout. And now you want one again in Palm Harbor. Why are you not concerned about the other problem areas in Pinellas, such as Clearwater and Dunedin and Safety Harbor? Why does the Palm Harbor need 2 roundabouts and the other areas will have none? We need streetlights downtown, and that has never been addressed.
There's a lot in that.
Yes.
First, the roundabout at Alt 19 in Florida, that was designed and constructed by the Florida Department of Transportation, not the county. So they had full jurisdiction over that one. We've addressed the reasons why we're looking at a roundabout on Nebraska as 16th for safety and traffic flow reasons. This is not the only project that we have in Pinellas County. We have them all across the county. And we actually have another project in mid-county where we are considering a roundabout there as well. Slightly different design than this one, even a little bit about the same size, but even additional lanes just to handle the traffic volume through there. This is something that we will continue to look at throughout the county with each of our projects, where it's relevant, where it fits, and where it addresses the safety and traffic flow problems that we're currently experiencing. And I will add that even on East Lake Road, we're looking at not roundabouts, obviously, but some innovative intersections that are quite different than what we're used to around here. So as we look at improvements to East Lake in the North County area, we will look at other alternatives for intersections to help with that traffic flow and safety.
And John, if I could just add something real quick before we move on. Rob's correct about the roundabout on Alt 19 in Florida, but I will say that FDOT had several, public meetings at the high school soliciting input on that project before they moved into construction. And it's been a partnership with the county as well, because there is impacts to the Pinellas Trail. So we worked pretty closely with them on that, but there was ample opportunity for public input there. As far as lighting in the downtown Palm Harbor area, we've been working with the Merchants Association. They've got the infrastructure in place. But again, with the county not having a program, it becomes an assessment program. So we're working on that. We just haven't gotten over that hurdle yet.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Okay, the next question is for Jason. Will there be a left turn arrow into Westlake Village with this project?
Yes, there will be.
Okay.
Thank you.
And do you know if it's going to have is it going to be like a green arrow? Is it going to have a flashing yellow?
I'm not too sure about the flashing yellow. I'll have to double check on that, but it's going to have the red, yellow, green turn signal.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next question goes to Tom. I would expect this project to increase pedestrian traffic and bicycle traffic. Has the study considered if that will negate some of the traffic flow and safety effects you're trying to have?
I'm not going to dispute that it's going to increase pedestrian and bicycle traffic. In several of our opinions, that would be a good thing, to kind of shift that mode of traffic a little bit. But the demand is already out there. So, this project is really to address the safety concerns that we see out there now with students trying to get to and from the high school, with pedestrians and bicyclists trying to get to and from the downtown Palm Harbor area. That's become a very popular area. So I think the addition of sidewalks on both sides and then putting appropriate crossing locations, will be a huge safety benefit for all the modes of travel, not just peds bikes, but motorists as well.
Thank you. Jason, were the aerial presentations to scale that were in the presentation?
I believe so. Are we talking about the renderings? I believe everything was
Well,
to scale.
actually both. I mean, the aerials that you showed
Oh,
as
yes.
well as your plan sheets were to scale, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, the only thing that would be kind of out of scale would be like those concept drawings because they're like tilted and not flat.
Right. And the typical sections are, might not be completely scaled too, but the plan views that we're looking at, those were all to scale.
Okay, thank you. Tom, here's a question for you. Is the roundabout supposed to help out with the end of the day for the high schoolers? I live on Indiana and 17th, and they're currently cut through Pennsylvania and Indiana to avoid 16th and Nebraska.
Another good question. I would say that not just high school students, but most of us in general are seeking that path of least resistance to get from point A to point B. I think, one of the benefits of the roundabout is that it will be a continuous flow. And I think if students find that they can get to where they need to be, either across Nebraska or to head east on Nebraska by making their way over to the roundabout, that they'll do it. I would expect that once that's constructed, there will be some shift in the traffic patterns.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question's got two parts, and I'll probably call on Rob and Jesse to answer this. I'm on the north side with the trail. I'm nervous about the mail, and with the now increased traffic that you're proposing that will be there, anything be done for our protection, for our mailbox, since I don't know of any mailbox on an actual trail? And then the second half is about drainage. Drainage, which I would welcome, may actually make it worse in further on the property. Any suggestions and help for those affected? So, Rob, could you talk about the mailboxes first, and that it's the sidewalk versus a trail?
Yes, exactly. I'm glad you pointed that out. We did go away from the 10-foot trail to a 6 to 8 foot sidewalk path there along that north side. The mailboxes are going to be placed between the sidewalk and the back of curb. So there will be some distance there. Now that for delivery, the mailbox face is close to the face of that curb. It typically sets back a foot or so, but it has to be relatively close for the post office, for the mail carrier to access it from their vehicle. But in terms of access to it, there would not be any issue there. And safety, you do have with this design the curb and gutter, which effectively adds another 1.5 feet, roughly 2 feet to the edge of pavement. So you've got that additional space as well than the face of the curb, which comes up 6 inches, and then your mailbox will be behind that.
Thank you, Rob. And Jesse, could you talk a little bit about drainage, that how it's not going to impact the property owners?
Sure. Yeah, I read that. I think I'm understanding that the concern is further into the property owner's property. And we would be making sure that any of our proposed drainage systems are not going to block or cause any additional flooding. In fact, it would be improving the any flooding that happened, because if it drains, it would drain away from your property and into our drainage systems.
Thank you, Jesse. Okay, the next question is for Rob. We have been advised by a realtor that the homes adjacent the roundabout will have their home values impacted negatively. What are the county's solutions to this?
We don't have any data on that in terms of a negative impact from roundabouts. There are a number of roundabouts very similar to this in the city of Clearwater along the Cleveland Avenue or Cleveland Street segment and in South County as well. And we don't have any data that actually reduces property values for sale.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question is to Tom. Tom, can they make the whole roundabout area a school zone instead to help slow down traffic through the week and not put the roundabout in?
Interesting question. Yeah, school zones, they're very specific in their application. Typically, we install those where we've got school crossing guards that need assistance to gain control of a location that they need to cross students. So we get very selective because we are reducing the speeds down to 15 miles per hour in that area. We also try to minimize that area to minimize the delays. The other thing I would add about that is if we were to consider something like that, you're talking, half an hour every morning, a half an hour every evening, basically for the 180 days out of the year that school's in session. So it's not a long-term, it's not a continuous 24/7, type of a treatment. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you. And just so everybody knows, we have 28 questions left, so we are getting less questions now, but please hang in because we're an hour and 45 minutes in. So the next question I'm going to ask Rob to answer. The website provided does not include a detailed map of the revised map at the Pinellas.gov project Nebraska Avenue roadway improvements. Can you give us an ETA of when they can expect it?
That will take probably a couple of days to get up onto the website. The information will be put up there by our communications division and our department. And that typically takes 2 to 3 days for all of that information to be uploaded to the webpage.
Okay, but I think that if we're requesting roll plots, that might be something that we cannot accommodate on the website. So if anybody has questions about the whole thing, they're more than welcome to come in and take a look at those roll plots here at the county. Is that correct?
Yes, if we cannot get those up onto the webpage, then more than welcome to come in and take a look at those.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm gonna ask this question of Tom. As a resident at 1543 Nebraska Avenue, one of the 4 on the corner at 16th, I'm very concerned about the safety for our children crossing Nebraska Avenue in the mornings. The one flasher beacon has already caused many safety concerns as I personally have to watch my child via our doorbell each morning because he has also been hit 3 times. Now my concern is the safety of them and this mini roundabout and people not paying attention to these children. How can you assure us that the safety of children is one of our top concerns?
Sure. And, as a parent, I can appreciate the comment and the concern. I would say the fact that we've gone out there and we've done the study and we've put the RFB in there, is an indication that we take this very seriously. We want the students, we want everybody to get to and from where they're going safely. Adding the sidewalks on both sides of the road will be a benefit to minimize locations where students have to cross. As I said, we're also taking a look at another location at 14th Street. And if there are these type of concerns, I would encourage anybody who sees concerns like that to reach out to us. We'll engage with law enforcement. We'll engage with the school and school resource officer, and we'll get eyes on the situation and take additional steps as necessary to improve.
Yep. Thank you, Tom. Rob, maybe you can answer this next question because you had presented about this during the presentation. How will the number of crashes be impacted by putting in the mini roundabout as compared to the earlier accident chart?
Well, what typically happens when we're looking at the type of intersection that we have now versus a four-way stop or a traffic signal is a lot of the increases are from rear end accidents. The difference with the roundabout, and that's attributed to vehicle stopping and drivers not really paying attention to that. The difference with the roundabout is that it helps decrease those accidents because there is more of a continuous flow of traffic. As you're coming up to the roundabout, you're yielding to any traffic, any vehicles that are in the roundabout, but you're still able to continue that movement as that vehicle basically progresses and gets out of the way so that you can enter that roundabout. So there are not the abrupt stops. That does not negate the driver's responsibility to pay attention to the vehicles in front of them and slow down for that area. But it has been proven that they reduce those types of crashes.
It reduces the amount of crashes because it lowers your speed, and you also don't have that same left turn conflict that you have at a regular intersection. Thank you. Okay, Rob, let's answer this question. Since the plan will remove driveway depth, how will the north side residents have more than one vehicle? Are you taking any depth away?
No, we're not.
Maybe at the roundabout?
And most of those properties up and down Nebraska have fairly deep frontages. So I don't think that's going to be an impact.
Okay. And if you have a concern specifically about your driveway, please give us a call and we can take a look at the distance that is there now and in the future. Rob, if the north sidewalk covers or affects existing sprinkler lines, will they be replaced or reconfigured by the county?
Yes, we do have a specification that addresses that we put into our contracts. So anything that's in the right of way that needs to be relocated, and we do have a spec and a pay item for our contractor to address that.
Okay. Thank you. The next question goes to Tom. What can you do to redirect traffic away from Nebraska to Alderman and Tampa Road? They are 4-lane roads and designed for high traffic. Nebraska is a residential neighborhood and we want it to remain residential. Maybe you can explain that it's an arterial roadway, so it is meant to handle more traffic.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, it is a connection between US 19 and Alt 19, so it is a natural, connection for that, for residents trying to get to and from, those 2 points. I would say Alderman and Tampa probably carry more traffic. I'm almost certain that they carry more traffic today than Nebraska does. So I would say naturally there's traffic that diverts. But again, traffic and motorists are going to seek, the point of least resistance. And if it's more convenient for them to use Nebraska, then that's what they'll do. Now during construction, those would be the official detour routes. And again, those are pretty far north and south. So, it becomes a question of, are motorists really going to use that as a detour route if we have to close a lane? But, those are the closest similar type, functional roadways to Nebraska.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Rob, regarding trees, when you redid Omaha Avenue, you cut down all the oak trees and never replaced them. How do we know that you won't do that on Nebraska too?
Well, like most everything, things change, as well as our code and our requirements. And at the time that County Road 1 was widened through the Palm Harbor area, there was not a requirement to replace those trees. That has since been added, and we do that now. We've done that on a number of projects already, and we'll continue to abide by our own codes.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Tom Washburn. Following up on the detour question, I'm assuming this has the potential to impact Georgia Avenue. We already have a speeding issue with cars cutting through. What safety measures will you take to ensure speed limits are enforced? And there have been prior asks for speed humps, but it's been declined.
Yep, good question. As I said previously, speed humps are no longer included in our residential traffic management program, so the county no longer installs those as an option. However, during construction, on a temporary basis, we have installed those if, the situation is as described and, there is a lot more traffic that's using it as a detour. The speeds are high. It's creating a safety issue. We've done that, and we just did it recently for a closure on County Road 1 over in the Wexford Lees area. So, we do have the ability to do it on a temporary basis. And again, the safety would be the priority.
Okay, thank you. And just so everybody knows, we have 11 more questions, so we are coming down to the end. I see that there's somebody that hasn't been able to talk yet, so we are getting to you.
Joan,
yes.
Can we try Marta Falcon again? We had tried to connect with her earlier and couldn't get her unmuted. Marta, if you're listening, I'm going to unmute you again. You don't have your hand raised, so I can't unmute her.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Ms. Falcon.
Okay, awesome. So we are here. We live in Nebraska. My husband, Steve, and I are worried for several things for the neighborhood first and for some safety reasons. I would like for him to speak because I have a deep accent.
So the general question, I think you've answered the first one, because we have a parade of high school students every day crossing at 14th Street. We don't see the parade of people sideways going east and west on the sidewalk, as has been represented so far. I'm not sure where the survey data, but we've lived here for 7 years, and we don't see a lot of people using the sidewalk on the other side of the street. So we still are. We're not satisfied with the answer on why there's a need for 8-foot sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
That is, I guess I would say it's a corollary to the question that Marta asked earlier on the chat, and that is that what is the need for the 8-foot? Because it will significantly add to the intrusion into what is currently the front yards of the people here. And for example, there's only a single driveway here. And if you shorten it up by putting a large sidewalk there, which is really more like a path or a trail, if you shorten that distance, then we have to park our cars all the way across the front of the property. That applies to everybody who lives here. Only the people who have corner lots may have a slight out by having access from the side streets. But those are the people that live all along the streets, in between all of the streets. They will lose their front yard, and their front yard will just basically turn into a parking lot. And all for people coming from outside the neighborhood, it appears. I see lots of people biking along on the current south side sidewalk, and they have no problems. They just ride in a single line. And you don't need 8 feet to cross back and forth unless you're the Pinellas Trail, where you're supposed to be accommodating large volumes of pedestrian traffic. That is not existent here. As well as there is a large volume of road traffic, because it appears as the traffic now that people don't want to go around the roundabout Florida Avenue, they divert up Nebraska. So the traffic is increasing. And we, the residents here, basically want the traffic to decrease and have this not be a quote unquote arterial collector. We'd rather it go back to its original residential neighborhood status. Tampa Road and Alderman all have neighborhood fences. There's no houses and residents virtually at all that face those roads, except for a couple very old historic houses. All new subdivisions are not built with access. They have subdivision accesses off of other roads. So we have a unique situation where there is 80 houses that face the road, and they're not going to go away. And they're looking at having the property values trashed because of the wide sidewalk. If it was a 5-foot sidewalk, that's all that's required, that would be fine.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. And Rob, could you just say again that we're widening to the 8 foot so we can accommodate two-way traffic of pedestrians and bicycles on that side of the road?
That is correct. And currently there is no sidewalk on the north side, starting at 14th and heading to the east. And so you're not going to see that traffic for that reason, traveling east and west, and they will end up crossing the road, or they're using the street along Indiana or Pennsylvania that doesn't have sidewalk either, and they're riding in the streets or walking to get where they need to go. So looking at that, that's one reason why we need to have the sidewalk on the north side to accommodate the pedestrian activity that would normally be there, and I believe will be there once that is completed. As far as the width, again, when we are in high pedestrian traffic areas, we do want to provide that wider sidewalk so that kids on bikes traveling back and forth to school, again, to Palm Harbor University High School, and there are other schools in the area as well. We want them to have that safe access and to be able to provide that extra width for walkers that are using that same sidewalk.
Thank you. Thank you. The next comment is that he's an owner of the property at 11th in Nebraska, and he hasn't had a chance to talk with you. I know that you had mentioned talking to the business owners on that corner, so I guess we need to reach out to him. He's no longer on the call tonight, but maybe we can reach out to him.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And same thing, we've got another person that said that she did have to leave, and can you please email the answers to her questions? And we will do that. The next one is a question, and Rob, maybe you can answer this one. A stone wall at 1124. I don't know if that stone wall is in the right of way or on the private property.
I think they may be asking for a stone wall in front of their property, if I'm not mistaken. Again, that'd be best to handle in person to discuss exactly what they mean, what they're looking at, what their concern is, and we can talk to them with the plans in hand.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question is about drainage again. So Jesse, I was wondering if you could take a look at this one. I don't feel that my question about the location of the proposed discharge points, I guess that it hasn't been addressed. Have there been studies of the potential impact on our watershed?
Yeah, so I did see this comment coming up. So basically, Nebraska is essentially just along the edge of two watersheds. So, and it kind of goes up and down in the existing conditions. So some of it goes to the north, some of it goes to the south in varying locations. So we are going to be tying into multiple different discharge points, but ultimately to have this project permitted, we have to show that there are no adverse impacts. So we will ensure that there's no adverse impacts within our design.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. And just a follow-up question. What water body does the water go to? Do you know that?
Oh man, let me see here. I think I got it in front of me. It's like the Curlew Creek Smith Bayou.
Okay.
I believe that's and then I think a part of it goes to the B branch. I'm sorry, I don't have those right off the top of my head.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. We might ask you to give us a little couple sentences on that, and we can put it up for people.
No problem.
Okay, Tom, next question is for you, and we do have 5 questions left, so we're coming down to the end. Was it considered to put 4-way stops at all the busy intersections along Nebraska?
A good question. I know that that's always popular is consider, multi-way stops. There's advantages and disadvantages to any type of traffic control. With a multi-way stop, where it's really applicable is where approaching traffic from all directions is about equal. That's where you get the most compliance. So when you're looking at Nebraska Avenue, clearly those approaches are much heavier than any of the side streets other than County Road 1, which is already signalized and Westlake, which is signalized. So, it might have been considered, but again, from an appropriate standpoint, not the best locations for multi-way stops.
Thank you very much. The next question, Rob, is we are at 1124 16th Street and would like to formally request a person meeting. So maybe we can ask them to put their phone number down there for us, and we can give them a call later in the week.
Absolutely. We'll set that.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pass the next one to Tom. The kids on bikes already barely pay attention. There's no way they can navigate a roundabout. A crosswalk close by would undoubtedly cause accidents. A stoplight would eliminate destruction to the 4 properties while creating a safe crossing for the students. A 3-way stop at 19th and Nebraska would help slow the traffic. And actually, it sounds like it's just a comment. There is no question there. So we will thank you for your comment, and we will take a look at that, correct? Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess the lighting question wasn't really answered. So Tom, maybe you can take a look at this. I am asking a direct rebuttal question to Tom's statement about arterial lighting versus residential lighting. It is extremely dark on Nebraska Avenue. Also a question about having a stronger or more consistent sheriff office presence to enforce the speed limit.
Sure. Regarding the street lighting, the county doesn't have a program for arterial or collector lighting. The program that we have in place is for residential street lighting. That's a petition-based process where, if a neighborhood, wants to add street lighting, we work with them, we work with Duke Energy, we get cost estimates, but that's a program that's fully funded by the neighborhood. Unfortunately, with Nebraska Avenue being a county roadway, even though there's residential properties that abut it, we don't have a program right now to be able to add street lighting, primarily because we don't have funding sources for the recurring electric charges.
Okay, did you answer the question about the sheriff presence?
Certainly, like I said, we've got the speed feedback signs out there. We do regularly pull the data from those devices. We review it. We also send copies to the sheriff's office when we notice that there's patterns or certain times of the day where speeding is occurring. We do request directed patrols from the sheriff's office.
Okay. Thank you very much. And hey, Jesse, did you happen to find out that the answer about where the water goes to?
Yes, I did. So there's 2 watersheds. To the northwest is Palm Harbor, and to the southeast is Smith Bayou.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got one last question here, and I think that it might be something that we need to talk in person with a person. Thank you for fixing the audio problem. Thank you, Marta, for standing by with us. The question about pedestrian traffic was unanswered. The bike and pedestrian traffic is north and south and not east and west. I would disagree with Rob Metter about the greatly increased pedestrian traffic. However, the option of walking trail on Kansas solves all that problem. So can you provide any empirical data on the massive increase contemplated in the pedestrian traffic? And Rob, I don't know if you need to prepare something, and maybe we can get back with Ms. Falcon.
Well, we don't have empirical data in that, but in looking at what we experience throughout the county, is when we add that sidewalk, the pedestrians do gravitate to it. Now, again, as I indicated earlier, on much of Pennsylvania and all of Indiana Avenue, there is no sidewalk. So in the east-west direction, they're either walking in the street or they're seeking other avenues to go. So to get where the children and pedestrians in general want to go, providing that sidewalk on the north side. One, from a safety perspective of not having to cross the roadway at multiple locations to get to the sidewalk on the south side, and to address the the flow that we do have currently going to the school that's traveling on other side streets. We would need to provide that wider sidewalk, and that's the reason for it to go there.
Okay, thank you. And she has a follow-up question here. How will we be able to use the pedestrian facilities after dark?
The same way we do throughout the rest of the county. There is typically a lot of residual lighting from houses, front porch lights, things of that nature. And the difference in the color of the sidewalk versus the grass on the side or landscape materials or whatever, that makes it apparent.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. The next question is, with this trail, sidewalk, what stops a pedestrian from suing us, the property owner, if they get hurt in the right of way? And who do we contact about the driveway aprons, drainage, etc., for our own personal property? Rob, will you answer the question about the who is liable, and then also explain that they can contact us directly?
Yeah, just because you have sidewalk in front of your property does not make you liable. That sidewalk is inside the county right of way. So if there's a trip and fall from a pedestrian on sidewalk that is unlevel, then that's our responsibility. And we end up handling those situations on a fairly routine basis. And that's why we are very strict about our maintenance on sidewalks. And our road and street crews, they go out and they make repairs to sidewalks throughout the county. They grind sidewalks where it's unlevel to make sure that it's safe for pedestrians and bike users that are traveling along there. So that is a focus of the counties, and that is something that we routinely address.
Okay. And then how will they contact you? There is a contact located on the website?
Yes, if you're wanting to talk to us individually about your driveway and drainage at your property relative to what the plans are proposing, then you can contact Kathy Fernandez, and her number is on was on the presentation tonight, but it's also on the webpage, so you can get it from there.
And Tony, we're going to put that information back up at the end of the presentation.
We are going to put Kathy's contact information up. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And Rob, to clarify, it was stated that the recorded number of accidents at 16th in Nebraska was 5. Can you confirm the time period those statistics reflect? I believe I heard 4 years, but I may have misunderstood. It was 19 to 22, right?
No, it was from 2015 to 2019.
Oh, okay.
And then we pulled data again from 2021 to 2023. Might ask why the gap. 2020 was COVID, and there were a lot of irregularities in traffic flow. So many people were working from home. So we basically disregard that particular year when we look at traffic volumes, traffic flow, and accidents. But yes, if you want to have that data, we can actually provide it to you, and we have that in a tabular format that we can send it to you if you want.
Okay, thank you, and thank you everybody for holding on till the end here. We are at our last question, and it was something that was asked a little bit earlier. So Rob, I'm going to ask you to take a look at it one more time. Actually, no, I think it was Tom. Tom, I think you answered this question. Would installing 4-way stops on Nebraska divert traffic back to the larger roads like Tampa Road and Alderman, and which are equipped to handle this kind of volume due to the drivers wishing to avoid the frequent stops?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, interesting concept. I think what's actually more likely is they would, since there is a nice grid network up there, they would probably divert 1 or 2 blocks north or south if it became, problematic to get through the intersections. I think what also becomes more likely, since it's really not an appropriate solution, is you'll have a lot of motorists on Nebraska start rolling through those intersections and start, basically disobeying the traffic control devices, which makes it more unsafe. So-
Okay. Thank you. That was the last question, but we do have one more comment. Thank you. This was an excellent session. Thank you for your comments, everybody. Tony, we're passing the evening to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joan, Rob, Tom, Jason, and Jesse. And thanks everyone for all the questions and comments. Give me just a second here while I share a slide. We promised you a link to a survey, and you should see that link here on the slide. You can type in the link. You can find it on the project website. That's pinellas.gov/Nebraska Ave. Or you can wait a couple of minutes for the meeting to end, and a link will pop up in Zoom. Additionally, we have already posted tonight's PowerPoint presentation with speaker notes and additional information from the Federal Highway Administration about roundabouts on the project website. You'll also be able to find a link to a recording of tonight's meeting, possibly as early as tonight. There's another channel available to you as well. If you have additional questions or merely want to provide feedback directly, we promise to put up Project Manager Kathy Fernandez's contact information, and here it is. Kathy Fernandez, she's the county's project manager for this project. And her email, if you didn't notice, is krfernandez@pinellas.gov. We're glad you were able to join us tonight, and we hope you found the meeting informative. We'll keep you updated as the design process continues, but the newest information will always be posted on the project website. Once again, thank you.